Ever feel like you're barreling along helplessly, knocking and kicking things around you underwater instead of actually enjoying your dive? You're not alone. Most open water courses barely scratch the surface when it comes to proper movement in the water, leaving divers feeling awkward, inefficient, and sometimes even harmful to the environment. And that's why I made this video. Today, we're breaking down the key finning techniques that will give you the total control you need in water, making you smoother, more efficient, and way more graceful in the water, all while protecting the marine life. Let's dive on in. If you've ever found yourself using your hands to stay steady, accidentally kicking coral, or struggling to keep up with your dive group, your finning technique needs work. But don't worry, I've got you covered. This video will cover at a high level all the primary tools you can utilize to get that precise control in the water. But first we need to understand why it's so important to improve this control. Poor finning is a big reason for coral reef damage, and some coral species take decades to recover from a single careless kick. Now, finning isn't just about movement. It builds on your buoyancy and your trim, and results in command and control of your position in water. If you're shaky in those areas, precise movement will be harder, but knowing the right techniques is the first step. From there, practice buoyancy, trim, and finning together, and this will take that control to the next level. Mastering these skills will make your movements precise and effortless, letting you navigate delicate environments safely. Good finning prevents you from stirring up silt and sand, which messes up visibility and can impact marine life. Let's start with the flutter kick. You're probably already using it, but there's more to it than just kicking your legs up and down. By the way, it is important to note that finning techniques aren't always taught the same way everywhere, and names can vary. What I'm sharing here is based on my own experience and what I found works best. I'll define three main types of kicks: the sprint, standard, and modified, each with its own purpose. The sprint flutter is what most people are taught first. It's powerful and fast, engaging your entire leg by using the hip to power the momentum, but it builds up CO2 quickly, tires you out fast, and burns through your air. That's why I only recommend using it in emergencies. It's done by kicking with your whole leg, bending at the knee just slightly to get maximum propulsion. Think of a swimmer's flutter kick, or rather the flutter kick that you would do on the surface of the water. Long and powerful strokes. The key is to avoid bending your knees too much, or you'll end up doing an inefficient bicycle motion. Also, it is important to point your toes outward, trying to put that fin in line with your leg as much as possible. I also want you to note that with the sprint flutter, it displaces water up and down, unlike most other finning techniques we'll cover in this video, which means it can kick up silt or damage fragile ecosystems. So it's important before engaging your sprint flutter to position yourself well away from anything that can be disturbed. Now, some diving agencies push divers toward the frog kick as a more efficient alternative, but there's a competitive version of the flutter kick that isn't often taught. I call this the standard flutter kick. For this one, you should be starting in a hover position. You keep your knees slightly bent, fin tips up, and kick out controlled and gently. It's slower and more efficient than the sprint flutter, making it great for cruising, especially in currents. You'll notice one big difference between this is you're trying to push the water backwards with the upper part of your fins. Then there's the modified flutter, which is very similar to the standard flutter, but uses much smaller and more precise movements. This is the go-to when you need to move gently without disturbing the environment around you. It's slower, but it keeps you in control. Don't mistake this one for the bicycle kick. It's more of a shimmy with the ankles and should not displace too much water downward as much as out and behind you, so it's okay to use near the bottom. Also, you should never drop your knees, which will break your trim with the standard or modified flutter. And by the way, just so we establish what a bicycle kick is and how to avoid it, this is where your knees drop below your waist with every kick and your fins have very limited movement. The dropping of your knees will break your trim, and ultimately the lack of fin movement displaces limited water, leading to a very inefficient kick. and that's why we avoid the bicycle kick overall. The bicycle kick is not a technique that's ever taught, but more of a bad habit divers fall into, and I want you to avoid by practicing the techniques in this video. Speaking of which, flutter kicking in general has your legs moving up and down, making more space on the vertical plane, which is above and below you, which might sound obvious, but the intricacies are important. If you have anything above you or below you directly, you can accidentally kick it with the flutter. So in tight vertical spaces, a frog kick would be more preferable. This feature can be a benefit though in tight, narrow spaces or in close formation with other divers where your horizontal plane is very limited. This kick ensures you don't disturb anything on the horizontal plane. It's a much more narrow form of kick. And another feature of flutter finning is it's a more consistent kick, allowing a stable but constant thrust, which means you don't need to kick as hard, but you will always be kicking, which has some pros and it has some cons. This can aid in taking some smoother video shots, or more importantly, give you a stable thrust and current, but it is also not as relaxing as something like the frog finning technique where you have that long glide. One of the biggest mistakes divers make with flutter finning is relying too much on the legs and glutes. These are some of the strongest muscles in your body, but using them inefficiently will drain your energy and air supply fast. Not to mention building up that CO2 in your body, which will give you the most severe headache you can imagine. The only flutter kick that I've defined here that should be exhausting remotely is the sprint flutter, because it's meant for an all-out sprint speed. So I want you to remember that flutter kicks are your best option when the horizontal plane is limited or when there's current. I do personally believe that the opinions that flutter kick is significantly more air inefficient than frog is mostly bogus. And once you do get better at the techniques I described in this video, you'll find it's actually about the same. So I want you to treat both as two tools in your tool chest, and you will use one over the other based on the situation you're presented with. Except for the sprint, that will burn through your air fast. And we've already alluded to it a little bit, but let's jump into frog kicks and why they're so popular. The frog kick is often seen as the mark of an experienced diver. While it does take good buoyancy and trim to execute properly, I think it's a bit overhyped. That said, every diver should know it because it's an essential skill and a part of that tool chest that I want you to have and be ready to wield at any time. It has two major advantages. It makes diving feel more relaxed, and it minimizes environmental impact on the vertical plane. This is because the way that the finning technique moves, you'll generally move your legs out and in and clapping them on every single movement, making very little vertical movement up and down and more of a horizontal movement. And as mentioned, probably the greatest thing about the frog kick is the glide phase. You get forward movement without constantly kicking, which makes for a more relaxed dive. Generally, you will kick once, relax, go right into a hover, and then you can kick again. This generally feels a lot more relaxing than the flutter kick. All right, here's how we do it properly. Start with your legs bent and fins flat in a good neutral trim hovering position. Then widen your legs slightly. Then with your knees still bent, move your legs outward slightly while bending your ankles so that your fins are now vertical and touching as close as you can get them. The goal is to get a good clap with your fins. If you can get them to fully touch, great. If not, no worries. I can't either. It takes a lot of flexibility, and it's that press of the fins together that give extra boost to your motion. Don't push too hard. It should feel more like standing up from a chair rather than some kind of karate kick. It should be a very smooth and controlled motion, paying special care to never drop your knees as that will break the trim. After each clap, relax your fins, keep your knees bent, and glide through the water. This glide phase is crucial. Without it, you won't get the full, more effortless effect of the frog kick. For many, this glide phase leads to a level of relaxation between each stroke that makes a frog finning superior for cruising And by cruising, I mean the general go-to kick that you're going to use from getting from point A to point B. And just like the flutter, there's also a modified frog kick for tight spaces or when approaching shy marine life. It's similar to the modified flutter kick, but you keep your knees closer together and use smaller and more subtle movements. You can kind of picture this like trying to just move your ankles, again like the modified flutter, and just clapping repeatedly with just your ankles with very minimal movement. This gives you a precise control over your movement in the water. Just like the modified flutter kick, it's all about slow, controlled motion that has your fins moving horizontally instead of vertically, but primarily displacing water behind you. When there's plenty of space on the horizontal plane, frog finning can be your ideal movement. Due to that long glide phase, when there is little current, it is often the most ideal finning technique because it can feel very relaxing. But of course, if you're frog finning in current, you'll find you're going to quickly get overwhelmed. You will have to switch back over to your flutter to make sure you're maintaining your momentum in current. I still advise to avoid the sprint flutter in current because that's going to burn you out really fast. My main point here is that both frog and flutter kicks have their place. Neither is better than the other. They're just different tools in your diving kit for moving you forward efficiently. But now you might be wondering, what if I need to move in a different direction? Don't worry, I've got you covered. There's a finning technique for that too. Imagine being able to rotate on the spot without stirring up a single grain of sand. The helicopter turn is an advanced finning technique that lets you maneuver with precision in tight spaces while keeping perfect trim and being able to turn in any direction on the spot. It's a crucial skill that helps protect both you and the marine environment. But here's how it works. The goal is to pivot 360 degrees around a vertical axis without moving forward or backward, almost like you're on an invisible pivot just right beneath you. To pull off the helicopter turn, start with your neutral trim in a hover position. This is key to staying in one spot. The leg on the side you want to turn toward does a frog kick, while the other leg sweeps in the same direction but with a reverse or back kick to keep everything balanced. Another way to think of it is that the leg that matches the direction you want to turn toward pushes water horizontally, like a frog fin. Then your other leg or fin reaches over and continues to push it out. So push, grab, and then sweep. And then you just keep doing that motion until you get to where you want it to turn towards. This creates a smooth, controlled spin that keeps you centered. It takes practice, so try in a pool at the surface or calm water before attempting it in more challenging conditions. The helicopter turn has plenty of real-world uses. Underwater photographers and researchers use it to line up that perfect shot or observe marine life without disturbing their surroundings. Marine life will not intend to always stay in front of you, and if you're moving around too much, it will keep its distance. So the goal is to move your legs subtly behind you and turn with it. When diving in wrecks, it helps you turn around in tight spaces without bumping into fragile structures. So with these techniques, we should be able to move in any direction now, right? Not quite. There's still one direction we haven't covered yet, and it opens up a whole new set of possibilities, backwards. So let's tackle an even bigger challenge. The back kick, or reverse kick, is a crucial skill for advanced diving and often overlooked. It's the hardest finning technique to master, but it's essential when moving forward isn't an option. This comes in handy when you poke your head into a narrow space, like trying to get that perfect shot of a pygmy seahorse on a sea fan, but there's current and you're gonna run right into that sea fan and that little pygmy seahorse is home. There isn't enough space to turn either. Are you really going to be the one to wreck that poor seahorse's home and destroy that beautiful fan coral? The back kick lets you slip in and out of tight spaces without causing a mess. Here's how it works. Start with a hover position in a solid neutral trim. The key here is your trim. It has to be on point or this will be tricky, more so than any other kicks. Next, stretch your legs out straight and together like you're presenting something in between your feet to someone behind you. Do this slowly so you don't throw off your balance or push yourself in the wrong direction. Then point your toes outward like a fan. Open your hips and bend your knees outward while keeping your hips up. Bring your fins toward you in a smooth motion. It sounds simple, but trust me, it's gonna take some practice. The motion itself is pretty cool. By pushing water forward, you move backward. This lets you navigate tight spots without having to turn around, so you can keep your eyes on whatever you are looking at. One thing that is a common struggle is having bad trim or losing your balance or kicking in the wrong way too hard, which is going to push you forward and not backwards. So be patient with this one. It's gonna take some practice, but practice makes perfect. Remember, the back kick is all about precision, not power. It won't help much in strong currents, so don't expect to be swimming backwards in the current. But it's perfect for small controlled movements. I use it all the time to sneak in and out, check something, and then back away so smoothly that no one even notices I was there. It takes practice, but once you get the hang of it, it makes a huge difference in your diving. Plus, it really forces you to refine all your other skills. I'm still working on perfecting mine, but it absolutely will be worth the effort. Today, I wanted to help you see all the different finning techniques and how each one has its own purpose. There's no best kick, just the right one for the situation. But you need to be proficient with all of them. These absolutely are fundamental diving skills that will make you safer, more confident, and better at protecting the underwater world we love, as well as maneuvering around, having an easier time recording your memories, and showing off how cool you look staying in trim with all these techniques. And if you're looking to build off your finning technique and further optimize your fins themselves, check out this next video to help you understand the features and characteristics of different fins. And until next time.